Mental. Adjective. Relating to the mind. Relating to disorders of the mind. Flog. Verb. Beat someone with a whip or a stick as punishment or torture. Mental flog. That shit we put ourselves through day after day when we're dealing with things we haven't quite dealt with yet. Mental Flog is a podcast where we come to learn how to live better and quit beating ourselves quite so much. Thank you for joining us, and we are ready to put on a show for you. All right, everybody, welcome to Mental Flog, Season 2, Episode 2. Jeff is not with us tonight. This is the first time Jeff has not been on an episode. It was bound to happen at some point, but the show must go on. Fear not, it is not just I tonight. As of those of you who are watching this on YouTube can see, we have a guest tonight. Melissa, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing fabulous. How about you?
It's been a day. It's been a hectic day, but we've made it to the end of the day.
Yes, we did it.
So tonight we are talking about attachment styles. And the reason Melissa is with us is we want to give you the best content and information as we can. And we are just going to barely scratch the surface of this subject tonight. However, Melissa has been at this for quite a while, and she has agreed so graciously to be on the show and to share her experience with us tonight.
I'm incredibly excited to be here. Thank you very much for asking me.
Okay, we're just happy you're on the show tonight. It's awesome to have a guest with experience in topics join us. So, what we're going to be discussing tonight is the correlation of our early years and how it affects our love life. But before we do that, Melissa, say hi. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hello there. I'm Melissa, 28, Capricorn for those that care. And yeah, like you were saying, yeah, really this past year I've done a massive deep dive into my inner work and healing myself, and with that came the discovery of attachment theory and revolutionary stuff, and has completely 180'd incredibly important parts of myself in the best ways. And so I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am happy to have you on the show tonight because this will be a lot more interesting than just me talking this evening for everybody who listens to this. So, before we get into it, I have a new little segment we're going to do. I don't have like a fancy name for this yet, but everybody scrolls something. I end up on Instagram most of the time. And there's just some things I come across that I vibe with. And every once in a while, I'll snag one of those. And I just decided it'd be kind of fun to start showing some of that stuff on the show. Just a little chance to look at something and to discuss it. So here we
Sounds
are. I'll
good.
read this first slide. You don't need an apology from someone who mistreated you to heal from your trauma. The sooner you realize that some people can't handle accountability, the faster you'll be able to heal. What's your hot take on this one?
You know, it's funny. Just earlier today, I was talking with one of my coworkers about what forgiveness means to us, and for me, it's twofold. So forgiving them and forgiving me. So forgiving them, we are all products of our environment. We're products of our parents, our various caretakers, our friends that just everyone we absorbed things from. And so, because of that, we've learned ways of going through life that may or may not be successful. Not a lot of people are aware, one, of what their negative cycles are, and two, how to break out of them. And so, I can't give grace for that. I can't forgive possibly the specific things that they may have done, but I can forgive that due to however they were raised to an extent. I can expect more from myself than from them. Um, and so, uh, and then forgiveness for me. So the second part is forgiving myself for either not knowing better at the time or not doing better at the time. I can send those parts of myself love and compassion and gratitude for teaching me how I don't want to be again. And not everyone is capable of introspection like that. Either it's too painful or they literally were not taught. Um, That doesn't mean I have to keep them in my life if I don't vibe with how they're treating me or how they're trying to go about their life, but it does mean that I can have so much less, attachment and weight to that relationship while still being able to have, profound relationships, if that makes any sense.
No, it totally does. So for me, you don't need an apology from someone who mistreated you to heal from your trauma. I always got caught up in just getting that closure, that
Mhm.
completion of things, and that I was stuck on that in so many different instances for so long. And if I
Yeah.
kept living that way, trying to get the closure from different situations with different people, man, I would be a mess today. I would be nothing like I am right now.
Yeah.
And a big thing I had to learn was my self-worth before I could actually move on.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
this can be really hard because there's a lot of instances where I've been lied to in different scenarios, and I've flat out known I was lied to. Like, I have the receipts, I have the proof. And
Excuse me.
I had to come to the conclusion that there's no purchase in having, like, a closure conversation with somebody when you know that they will flat out lie to you about serious things.
Mhm.
Because the next step in that mental worm is you're gonna be sitting there going, "Well, was this truthful? Cool, I gotta have that conversation, I gotta hear things, but how much of it was the truth?"
Yeah, right? And that's still seeking external validation instead of following your own internal compass. It's the continuation of hoping that this time will be the time that they choose us.
Mhm.
And so the seeking of closure, I completely understand that. And for a long time, I wouldn't allow myself to move on without their closure, but I was never going to get what I wanted from them. I didn't even get what I wanted from them in the relationship because I wasn't getting what I wanted from me in the relationship. Um, and so, yeah, I completely understand what you're saying there.
And when it comes to accountability, some people really can't handle accountability, and we all know somebody who is a victim in life. No matter what bad thing happens, no matter what they set themselves up for, it's somehow not their fault.
Yep.
As
Um,
long as I can be accountable for my actions and my choices and take ownership of how I've gotten to where I've gotten, I feel like I'm doing fine in life.
right? Yeah. I completely agree. The thing about accountability is it involves feeling shame and embarrassment, and humans will do absurd things to run from their shame and embarrassment. Um, and oftentimes, if you look at how their various caretakers throughout their life, how did they handle shame and embarrassment? How did they handle accountability? Like it goes back throughout history. Attachment
Mhm.
theory is throughout our entire lives. Sorry, I'd say attachment theory with accountability, but it's modeling how our caretakers model going through life with us or for us, and it's deep.
It is. All right, let's see what this next slide has in store for us here. The day will come when your old life won't fit anymore. It's time to take off fear, put on bravery, and change into faith. Find the space in the world that fits your exact shape and fill it like an unapologetic motherfucker.
I like it.
On this one, if I look back through my progression, like, I don't know if you got to listen to any of our prior episodes. We talked a lot about our past on our tower stories.
Right.
For me, my tower fell in 2017 when I ended my 10-year marriage.
Oh,
Yeah. And I hit rock bottom. I bounced. It was up and down because healing isn't a straight path. We deviate along the way. We make mistakes. We dip back down.
just a little.
And the amount of friends I had at the start of that and how they've changed to, like, who I consider my close circle of friends today has changed drastically. There were
Yep.
some people that just hard drinking, it's the weekend, we're gonna go get hammered, and I needed that for a while. I
Yeah.
needed that,
Yeah.
and I can't relate to that anymore. I got gifted, basically a gallon of Gentleman Jack whiskey for Christmas by my
Nice.
partner's mom. And I looked at that, I'm like, "This is a 2-year supply."
That's how my boyfriend would look at it too. There was there was a huge bottle of oh shoot, I don't even remember, but it was like just sitting in his room for months and months untouched. And I was like, we should crack that open sometime.
Like, we used
But
to go at it hard, like a half gallon was like, 2.5 weekends of drinking.
yeah. Um last year so some context. So my tower fell in February of last year. Uh I was in a year and a half polyamorous relationship. I was the hinge and a V. I was dating two guys. They weren't dating each other, just me. One was Brandon, and my still current partner is Scott. I was with them for a year and a half, or with Brandon for a year and a half when it fell. And
This was a
shit, I'm
big deal
so
for you, I remember this.
yeah, it
I remember
was.
reaching out.
You did, and thank you so much for that. Bishop, I'm so sorry. I forgot to warn you. Sometimes I lose track of where I'm at in the middle of my sentence.
It happens.
My apologies. But yeah, that was relevant. I'm so sorry. You were saying, oh yeah, partying. Yeah, so last year Scott and I were going out like every weekend, Friday and Saturday. We had to get it out though. We were talking about this just last night. Um we needed the connection, we needed to play because our lives were so stressed by the fucking trauma of what was going on. And so like that's part of the healing journey, like, and but what a lot of people get stuck on is they don't let it be an experience. They chase it as a lifestyle. And so
Mhm.
after like 4 or 5 months, we were like, "Okay, we're getting tired." And we were able to wean off from the lifestyle, and now we go out like once a month, every 2 months, 6 weeks, something like that. And so it's we still like to party, but it's not, we don't have that need, that drive, like, "Oh my god, let's just go forget things for a minute," you know?
I know, like, a lot of the time now, if my friends invite me out to a bar, I'm like, "You lost me at bar." I have a fire
For us,
pit
we
and
just don't
whiskey at
really
my
have the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's okay. It's also we're just in a different place too. Like we're healed significantly more, and so we don't crave the escape so much anymore.
exactly. Anything else you wanna add to this slide?
Um, yeah, it's okay to start over. It's okay to figure out who you are outside of your old narratives, and it can be fun. I didn't know who I was until like 2 years ago, and then my life exploded in color. Like literally color everywhere because I found out by hanging out with myself that I like color, and I allowed myself to feel that. And so, similar to this slide, like just step into what makes you you and let it let it fill your life. Let it
It's
just
okay to
figure
take
out
a
who you are. Exact. Yes, take up space, dude. I remember one of my coworkers like yelling at me one time. I was like, "I'm so sorry," and she's like, "No, be loud. Take up space." And I was like, "Okay, okay, I will." And then I did, and it was great. It is great.
Alright, so that's 2 out of the 6. What do we got here? You can't be friends with those who broke your heart, ruin your life, took advantage of your love, kindness, and forgiveness. They don't deserve access to your life. There is no friendship there. This one could be controversial. What's your take on it?
Um, so I had a very, very painful friend breakup very recently, and I've had to stand firm. Both Scott and I have had to stand firm on not letting them back in, um, because they just it's so hard to summarize. But we, I'm so sorry. I appreciate your patience as I gather my thoughts. Yeah, when we're kids, we are kind of stuck wherever we're at. So if a sibling or a parent or anyone in that circle mistreats us, we have to deal with it. We have to stay there. We have to be there. And so as we grow up, those neural pathways are so strengthened that we don't realize we can leave shitty situations. That does apply to abusive relationships, but that also applies to friends. If say your sister normalizes bullying behavior, you're not going to notice when your friends are treating you like shit. And so what's fun is as adults when we learn self-worth and how to stand up for ourselves, we can decide, hey, you know what, I don't really like this treatment. I don't like who I am around these people. I don't like who I would need to become to stay around these people. I can step back and I can remove myself from this situation. Um, because that's absolutely true. They don't deserve access to your life if they're going to completely disrespect you and disregard you and lie to you. Um, they don't deserve access, and a lot of people really, really struggle with that, but it's an incredibly important thing to learn.
Gary John Bishop talks about getting complete with things and how it's hard to cut people off from your life because you can talk about something from a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and you're right back in the thick of it. And yeah, this definition getting complete is you don't think about the glass of water you drank yesterday. You drank it, your body did the thing, it's gone now, it's over with. It's not even a memory, it just happened.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to cut people off, and there's sometimes going to be things you have to deal with in that process on your own to get
Yep.
complete with it and to get closure. And this is kind of one of my new bigger things after reading his book Grow Up. Sometimes I'll look at older memories like, one of those shower thought moments, like what the shit was this? And I'll catch myself in that process and I go, nope, nope, we are not assigning new meaning to old bullshit.
Ooh, that's good. Um, I just got reminded. Do you ever watch Bluey?
We were talking about this a while ago. I've seen some of it. I haven't recently, but yeah.
Dude, Bluey is so good. I've just binged the entire series. It's amazing. And there's an episode that was really, really very well done. One of Bluey's schoolmates tackles a painful memory, basically. And while in the memory state, the teacher comes over to him and she says, "You know what's here. You don't need to come back to this place anymore." And I was like, "Holy shit." And so now when I find myself getting pulled into painful thought loops and like trying to reanalyze the situation again, I she comes to me, Calypso, I think the teacher's name is Calypso, comes to me and she said she just says, "You know what's here. You don't need to come back to this place anymore." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll just be on my way then. Bye." And it's really nice.
Well, it's amazing how simple little tools like that will stop us mid-process and allow us to redirect.
Right? Right? Bluey is full of those little nuggets. I can't tell you how helpful it's been. But yeah,
All right, let's see what our next one is.
perfect.
You're allowed to outgrow people that aren't growing.
Yes, that's a big one. That's a
I,
big one.
I had friends that, who always talked about big dreams, big goals, and then they do the same shit different day, day after day, and they never made any progress to those goals. But we'd sit down and have a couple drinks and we were right back to that conversation. That got really old after a while.
Yeah. Nope. I totally understand that. And so that's how it was with my ex, Brandon. He would say all the right words, but his behavior was what I really needed to look at, and it took me a long time to do that, but, Scott was crucial for me to be able to see, like, "Hey, actually, this isn't exactly very kosher treatment. I'm allowed to leave this because he's not holding up his end of the deal. He's not being who he says he is, and
Oh, yeah.
it's
Actions, not
okay."
words.
Exactly. exactly, and, yeah, it was you're completely allowed and encouraged, in fact, and that's what a lot of people, I think, don't realize while growing up is that, like, they're they're allowed to outgrow them, but their family dynamics didn't allow for that. If you're a little too different, if you think outside the box, no, don't do that. And so that gets normalized so much that we keep ourselves in horrible situations trying to justify the whole thing.
Mhm. Alright, let's see what this next one is. Knowing what you need, want, and deserve is the soil to grow the life you've been too afraid to live.
Ooh, I like that.
So this is from John Kim, the angry therapist. I freaking love his books.
Okay. I'm not familiar, but the angry therapist sounds very interesting. Knowing what you need, want, and deserve is the soil to grow the life you've been too afraid to live. Yeah, honestly, finding a sense of identity in your healing process is crucial because it helps you figure out what you want out of your life. A big part of my healing journey has been figuring out whose voices I'm hearing when I say a critical comment to myself. Is that my voice or someone else's? Before I dove headfirst into the things that I like, um, for a long time I was liking things other people liked. And so now that I have like a sense of self and a sense of what I like, my life is flourishing because I'm not trying to live for someone else, trying to buy what I think they would like, trying to be the person I think they would like to be. I'm being me and I'm vibing. It's a good time.
No, knowing what you need, want, and deserve. I mean, that can be really hard for some people in certain situations. But
Mhm.
getting to that point where you know yourself and you have an idea of your self-worth is how to go through life happy.
Yeah,
You'll still have
absolutely.
bad days, weeks, months, maybe even years, but knowing those key foundations is pivotal to
Yep.
being in healthy relationships, to working situations, to life situations.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps your internal, your moral compass steer you true.
Exactly. All right, we got one more of these.
Okay.
The only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is a series of decisions that most people refuse to make.
Yeah, that's a big one. Oh my god. It's really hard to break out of your neural pathways, your cycles, your habits, your patterns. They get comfortable, they get familiar. There's some just recently as last week that I've been like, "Oh, I'm still doing that." Ah, and it's not having me be where I want to be. And so I've been presented with the opportunity to decide who I want to be and how to handle that moving forward. But a lot of people just stay stuck. Something my dad said to me a very long time ago was nobody does anything without a payoff. Um, and sometimes the payoff is weird. Uh, for example, the thing last week, I was asking myself, okay, what's my payoff for not wanting to move forward from this? And it was that I got to keep myself small. I got to um, get other people to do my emotional labor for me. Um, I my payoff is that I don't have to change, and that's like not gonna get me where I want to be. And so I had to look into like, okay, well, what payoff do I actually want from this though? And so yeah, that's a really really important quote.
It's I love it when Gary John Bishop says this, the motivation fairy isn't real. You're never going to wake up 2 days from now and be like, "Today's the day I'm going to get my shit together. I have the motivation, I have the energy." Every step that you take to get life where you need it and want it to be isn't going to be fun, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah,
And there's going to be days you don't want to do fuck all, but those are the
yeah,
days it's gonna be most important to do it.
yep. So one of the biggest things that I learned this year Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to save you. You must save yourself. Nobody is going to eat healthy foods for you. No one is going to take your ass to therapy for you. No one is going to regulate your emotions for you. No one is going to give you a pep talk you'll actually believe for you. You must save yourself. You must learn how to show up for yourself, take care of your body. Even if these things weren't shown for you, there's knowledge out there. There's thousands of free resources, podcasts, YouTube videos, the library on all of that. And at this point, like self-help books exist for a reason, right? Um, and so yeah, it's incredibly important to learn how to show up for yourself, and it's important to realize that you're worth showing up for. A lot of us, our parents, they had us, and then just we're like, okay, well, manage your own emotions, be more regulated than I, an adult, am, which is utter bullshit. But here, parent yourself, take care of yourself, and so many people weren't taught very, very, very crucial life skills that they're now having to learn as adults. And it's really important to have grace with yourself as you're doing that, but it's important to do it. Um, a lot of relationships fail because one of the books I read last year asked me the question, what were the ways that I was forcing my partner to take care of me in ways that I was refusing to take care of myself? What has this cost us both? And that just shot me through my core because I realized I was expecting these unregulated, messy motherfuckers to have a better handle on life for me. I was expecting so much out of them that I didn't even have for myself. That was not, yeah, I'm glad I have had the year that I had because I cannot imagine continuing to go through life like that. Holy shit.
It gets intense, it really does.
It really does.
I used to have this dream where, like, I'd come home from the end of the day of work, take my shoes off, relax, get my feet, house is kinda set up the way I want, things are together,
Mhm.
things are chill, and then I realized I'm too motivated to change, grow, and learn things. So, those relaxed days, while needed, they're rare. There's always something I can be doing that's beneficial versus just wasting away watching Netflix.
Mm. I really crave my downtime actually, but I'm an incredibly busy person. I live 35 minutes away from the city, and then I have 2 jobs in the city. So, and then an active social life in the city. And so trying to move, but housing. But yeah, and so I would really love more downtime honestly, but life be life and
I'm, finally starting to explore the city, so I live in the Rose Park
okay.
area. So I'm like 15 minutes away from most of the major venues and everything.
Oh no, froze.
I'm still here.
You froze for a second. Can you repeat that? Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
It just
So
glitched
I
for a
I
second.
live
Sorry. Would you
I live, in the outskirts of the city. I'm out in the Rose Park area.
Okay, gotcha. Twilla.
So I'm like 15 minutes from, like, most of the major venues and everything. So I'm actually finally starting to get out and explore the city and see what's out there that I enjoy.
Nice. Excellent.
Well, now that we've gotten through those, before we kinda dive into the material, is there anything you wanna share with us about you, your background, anything else before we dive in?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think kind of the relevant information's right there.
Alright. So, like we are talking about, in this episode, we're gonna discuss how our childhood impacts our adult relationships. This is a topic that not everybody's gonna stop to ponder, and we often as adults blame so much of what's wrong with us on the ones who raised us. Now, this next statement will probably provoke some strong emotions, but it needs to be said. Stop doing that shit. Your parents, much like you, were imperfect people and often did the best they could with what they had. I'm not trying to brush what happened under the rug or even dismiss what you've been through. However, you are an adult now and you are capable of learning, healing, and growing. If you want to break the cycle, you have to take ownership of who you are and how you conduct yourself. Taking ownership of life as it is now removes the stumbling block of blaming the past for modern problems. It's up to you to be the best you that you can be. Now, I know those are
Exactly.
kind of deep words, but what's your take on that?
Um, Honestly, going back to what I was saying a minute ago, like you have to save yourself. So as of 18 years old, you are then responsible for every part of your life. Your parents are or caretakers were only responsible for the first 18. You are now responsible for everything else after that. Again, emotional regulation, cleaning your house, taking care of your body, doing the inner work. All of it is now your responsibility. And so something Brandon said the night we broke up. Yeah, communication has been a really difficult thing for me my entire life. You can ask my parents. It's like, okay, you're 30. You know you have communication problems and you're doing what about it? No, you're continuing to hide behind them? No, that doesn't work. What are you going to do about your things? Because a lot of people, they're really good about acknowledging their shit. They just don't do anything about it. They hide behind it. A lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm an anxious attachment. And they use that as an excuse for super shitty behavior. And so,
It's the
yeah,
whole I am what I am and like it or don't like it kind of mentality
yeah,
that so many people get stuck in.
yeah, right. It's like you're not set in stone. You can have confidence about certain areas of your life, but like you're not set in stone, and especially the bad shit about yourself. And if you're acting like you are set in stone, like you can't exactly be surprised when your life continues to be shitty. You know?
Oh no, how did I not foresee this completely predictable environment?
Oh no, it's the actions of my consequences. or
So
or the consequences of my actions. Oh my god.
so in
I'm
our
fine.
early life, we are walking, talking little sponges. Just like a toddler quickly learns a swear word, they pick up all sorts of things along the way. Watching our families is how we first learn to communicate. Now, this can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how they interact with each other. Good or
Mhm.
bad, you probably accepted things for how they were because you didn't know anything different.
Mhm.
Reflections from acrossthecouch.com has a great article that touches on attachment theory. Attachment theory suggests that we create an internal working model of our parents that we later internalize as our sense of self. Your attachment style, how you experience yourself, and how you exist and communicate and interact in your relationship. Your childhood experiences with your parents or caretakers provide a model for adult relationships. Your attachment style is the way we attach to others in romantic relationships, as well as to other close relationships. Attachment styles are formed in childhood and can have a profound effect on how we approach relationships through our lives. And there's four basic types of attachment styles: secure, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant. And now, Melissa, I'm sure you would say as you get deeper into this, there is more than those four, but those are the core four, right?
Yeah, definitely. One more that I learned about was disorganized, which is basically that your living environment growing up was so unstable. There was anxious, there was avoidant, there was secure, and so you're just kind of a jumble of all of them. Sometimes you have a good head on your shoulders, and then other times you go off the rails. And that's the
Fun
one I know the
time.
most. But yeah, it's a
So
very
a
good time.
secure attachment is when you feel comfortable with your partner, but also feel secure enough to separate from them when necessary.
Mhm,
If your parents showed love, responded to your needs, and validated your feelings, we were more likely to develop a secure attachment style.
mhm,
We then seek out and desire that same attachment style as an adult. The other three types create an insecure attachment. The anxious preoccupied attachment is what happens when people are dependent on their partner and fear losing them. And this can create codependency. The dismissive avoidant attachment is when people avoid closeness with others because they fear rejection or intimacy. The fearful avoidant attachment is a combination of anxious, preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant attachment styles, meaning you want closeness with your partner, but also fear being rejected or abandoned by them. If you develop an insecure attachment with your parents or caretakers, this may lead to having low self esteem, anxiety in relationships, or feeling overly needy. doubt that you can trust others, and sometimes being more apt to seek out relationships that mimic this same attachment, not because it feels good, but because it's familiar to us.
Mhm.
So, anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, uh, okay, so there was the thought, sorry, I appreciate your patience as I
You're fine.
formulate my thoughts. Yeah, okay. I'm so sorry. I think in concepts, and sometimes it's really hard to get that into sentences, and so I'm just, like, floating around. Maybe share some of your thoughts first. I seem to be struggling at the moment. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
I'm so sorry.
I think I've experienced a lot of these attachment styles in different ways, and the more I learn about things, I can reflect on the past, not trying to add new meaning to old bullshit, but I can be like, oh, okay. No, I see what this was now. This makes
Mhm.
sense. And that
Yeah,
helps me process a lot of things.
yeah, exactly. I would say most of my life I was an anxious attachment. I was very clingy. I was obsessed with talking to them all day. I was desperately needing to make sure that they were okay, so that way I would be okay. And that came from, so a really common trope in romantic relationships is the anxious avoidant coupling. They tend to attract each other for some silly reason. And so anxious attachments growing up generally, our caretakers, the people around us, were very emotionally or physically distant. And so um, we grew up understanding that in order to get love, we had to chase it. We had to maybe act out a little bit more. We had to be right in their face a little bit more. We had to beg for their attention and affection. And so that carries on into adulthood. And we tend to find partners that mirror our families. And so finding someone that was emotionally distant and didn't know how to check in with themselves properly was very familiar for me because that was what I grew up with, and so that didn't seem like a red flag to my nervous system. That was just Tuesday. Um, you know?
Well, no,
Um,
it's
yeah,
true. If you are used to chaos and all of a
yeah,
sudden you find yourself in what has all the makings of a healthy relationship, you're gonna feel bored. You're gonna feel lost. You're gonna feel confused. Nobody's
yeah,
throwing a frying pan at you. You're not getting attacked. You don't know what the hell's
right?
going on, but it doesn't quite feel like home.
Yeah, exactly. There's been a couple of times where things are good, and then that becomes intolerable, and within a couple of hours, a fight breaks out. And it's like, "Okay, no, that's not who I want to be. It's fine. Um, gonna work on that." But, no, absolutely. It can be incredibly scary to choose peace over chaos when chaos is all you've known. Because it's intimately familiar and it's more comfortable in a way, even though it brings up icky feelings, those icky feelings are kind of addictive actually. Um, Trauma bonding is what they call
Well,
it.
it's like, your childhood blanket. It's warm, it's comfortable, it's what you know, so you seek it out.
Exactly, yeah. Um, Unfortunately, having insecure attachments as a security blanket is not a lot of the world isn't very happy 'cause
No, no. While it's a comfortable choice, it is not necessarily the best choice.
exactly.
All right.
Mm,
So, psychcentral.com had this to say about adults with anxious avoidant attachment styles. The quality of bond with your primary caregivers in childhood may determine the level of security you have forming adult relationships. Research from 2016 and 2018 suggests that childhood emotional neglect is most commonly linked to adult anxious avoidant attachment style. And here's how: trust. As a child, when someone you rely on isn't responsive, your ability to trust others can be impacted. As an adult, you may experience fear of intimacy or becoming emotionally unavailable. In some cases, your distrust may lead you to be suspicious of other people's motives and actions. Self reliance. Caregivers that aren't present emotionally may cause you to develop a fierce sense of self reliance and independence. In time, you might start having difficulty asking for help or relying on others. You might even prefer not being in committed relationships. If you are, you might act dismissive toward a romantic partner or feel like you don't need to involve or include that person in your projects. Emotional expression. When you haven't been exposed to a wide range of emotions as a child, it may make it harder for you to recognize emotions in others and yourself. Expression of these emotions may also be compromised. This is also referred to as emotional dysregulation. A lack of exposure to emotions as a child can mean that you never learn how to mimic these emotions. So, modeling behavior or imitating others is one way or one of the main ways that children learn about the world. Eventually, as an adult, you may be unable to identify, acknowledge, or respond to your own emotions or your partner's. You might feel uncomfortable in the presence of vulnerability, intimacy, or emotional situations, or you may have a hard time expressing emotions. Uncertainty. Children who don't receive or inconsistently receive reassurance may never totally feel safe. This can translate to a lack of confidence despite feeling self reliant as an adult. You might be less willing to move out of your comfort zone, avoid new experiences with a romantic partner. Do you ever read something and be like, I have been personally attacked today?
Yeah, all the time.
When I was putting this together and I was going through that, this can translate to a lack of confidence despite feeling self reliant. As an adult, you might be less willing to move out of your comfort zone and avoid new experiences with a romantic partner. Like, thanks. Thanks for labeling me.
Right? No, so last year was incredibly interesting for me. So, like I was saying earlier, I think most of my life I've had an anxious attachment style. Last year was so traumatic, I swung to disorganized. Because so I was secure or I was mostly anxious, but the last couple of years I've been more secure leaning. I've been in therapy for a few years, but it's just this past year that like the big work has happened. Um, but yeah, so anxious most of my life, and then started becoming secure, and I still have a lot of secure tendencies, but then avoidance flooded my life for the first time ever. Um, m- the God, I am monogamous now, actually. So I was polyamorous, and I, for the first time ever, am uninterested in dating anyone outside of Scott. Like, I love Scott. I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled. But not only that, like, I was just scared for the first time in my life to open up and think about trusting someone because my trust had been betrayed so horribly in my relationship with Brandon. And I'm like, I no, because my entire life, so being an anxious attachment, I haven't really ever been single, or if I was flying through bodies, just constantly dating, um, and like just doing anything I could to not be alone or tell myself I wasn't alone. And not only was I so secure in Scott that I didn't feel the need, but I had shifted. Like I was just so traumatized that I was just like, nope, I'm good. I got my man. I'm good. Stay away. Stay away. And
No,
so
I
it's been
yeah,
so
so
interesting.
my relationship dynamic is ethically non-monogamous.
Okay.
I don't really go out and explore very often because people be crazy.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like the likelihood of finding somebody who is mentally and emotionally aware and grounded in a good place in
Mhm.
that dynamic, that is the true unicorn of that lifestyle.
Yeah, no, seriously. Absolutely. I got incredibly lucky with Scott. Like holy shit balls lucky. And and he has I remember him uh yelling at me last year, trying to get me to see, "You're not showing up for yourself," and that was an incredibly pivotal moment for me because I was like, "Oh, shit, I'm not," and so he's been able to help me, like, get a sense of self while giving me space to, like, play with who I am, and it's absolutely wonderful, but, yeah, and, so flipping to disorganized, I've also noticed that, the avoidant tendency, so not just fear of dating, but, within our relationship, like, my tendency to shut down or my tendency to lash out angrily, whereas before I would do anything I could to resolve the issue right away. I've noticed that, like, I am feistier than I ever have been before. And it's gotten a lot better as the year has gone on and we're both healing and understanding more about the world and humans. But it's been really fascinating, just like, oh, okay, this is what anxious felt like. I now have an intimate knowledge of what avoidant feels like too, and secure. Okay, cool. And it's very overwhelming sometimes, but like, we're good.
And knowledge is power. When you know something and understand something, it's easier to navigate troubled waters because you can
Mhm.
understand what you're going through deeper. It's not just, I feel this, it's this is what this is called. This is why this is
Mhm.
happening. What do I need to do? You
Exactly.
can get a game
And
plan.
exactly. And honestly, have feeling this way gave me so much perspective because most of my relationships have been with avoidance since I've been an anxious most of my life, right? And so I can't tell you how many times Scott has had to call me out on behavior that I remember saying the exact same sentences to several of my exes, and now I'm eliciting that behavior. And it was like, what we were saying earlier, accountability and like compassion and stuff, and I was like, okay, they weren't able to be accountable in this moment, but I can have compassion for the situation they felt, because there's times when he's calling me out on my bullshit and I just want to fight him just so he's not right, just so he's not right. And I've had to really challenge myself on that because I noticed my ex is doing the same way, and I'm like, "Nope, I don't want to bring that version of a relationship to Scott. He deserves better, and I deserve better too. I went through hell, and I deserve better from me." So yeah,
It's a process, but it's worthwhile, damn it.
it really is. It really, really is.
So, experiencing the effects of childhood emotional neglect may make you more likely to experience emotional neglect in your adult relationships. For
Mhm.
example, you might be emotionally neglectful towards your partner due to the emotional unavailability, or you may enter into relationships where others who are themselves emotionally neglectful towards you. Signs of emotional neglect in relationships include routine miscommunication or lack of communication, feeling lonely in the presence of your partner, inability to comfort others or to be comforted during times of distress, avoiding topics that might lead to emotional conversations, preferring to be alone or to do things alone, acting without consideration of other people, avoiding emotional intimacy or moments of affection, or using the silent treatment to express your disagreement. I there's one in here that I really jive with.
Yeah.
Avoiding topics that might lead to emotional conversations. This used to be my MO.
Ooh.
There were so many unhealthy relationships where my needs weren't being met, and if I brought something up, I knew it was gonna be a fight. It didn't matter if it was a
Mhm.
justified fight or not, but just mentioning something, having that conversation, it wasn't gonna be well received, it was not gonna be an adult conversation, it was gonna be a fight.
Right. I've
It's
had
not a fun
several of
time.
those instances in my life as well.
That is one of the greatest things about my relationship with my partner is that we have
Mm.
fantastic communication. I mean,
Good.
absolutely amazing communication. There's nothing that we can't talk about. There's no taboo or off limits or fight starting subjects. We can be real
Good.
with each other.
Good. That's so wonderful, and that's really, really important.
So, learning about these attachment styles there's a couple of people out there who are like, okay, cool, I'm healthy. And there's other ones like, I'm a little avoidant and I'm anxious about it now. So I think the real question is, cool, is this like, thanks, mom and dad, I have an anxious avoidant attachment style forever now, you bastards? Is that the case?
Nope, not in the slightest. Yeah, like I was saying, so um due to trauma and or healing, your attachment style can change. It usually does develop as you go through different experiences with friends, caretakers, lovers. Um but it absolutely can change. I used to be as anxious as they come, and then, like I was saying, I was working more towards secure leanings. I still have a lot of those leanings. It's nice being able to, like, okay, I can self-soothe, I can um, present or talk about a situation like calmly, rationally, emotionally, but like not out of control. It's profound the difference, you know.
So attachment style is a topic that is finally getting some much needed attention. Why? Because everything we do derives from our attachment with others. How we manage romantic relationships, how we relate to our coworkers, and even how we parent comes from our own attachment style. Now,
Mhm.
according to attachment theory, the adults typically have one of four attachment styles: secure anxious, avoidant, or fearful avoidant. And most people know your attachment style is built in childhood and typically maintained through your life. And the goal is always to be securely attached. It means you're able to form a secure relationship with others. You can trust easy, you're able to be loved, and you're able to love. Now, a person with a secure attachment style is not afraid of intimacy or fearful of others leaving when space is given. What happens when you have an insecure attachment style? That is, you tend to be more avoidant or anxious. Can you ever get to secure attachment? And if your childhood has set you down the path of insecurity? More simply put, can your attachment style change? The answer is yes. And here is why. Your attachment style can change through your life. Three distinct scenarios come to mind when we talk about changing one's attachment style. Scenario one: through life experience. A boy, let's call him Aaron, grows up in a loving home and his parents take great care of him. No noticeable trauma was present throughout his upbringing, and he learned very early how loved he was. His parents' consistency showed him that he can trust others while learning to love and be loved. He grew up with a secure attachment style. Later in life, when he began to date, Aaron experienced a series of unhealthy romantic relationships involving partners that did everything from cheating to lying to monitoring his phone and his social media. These partners had one of the insecure attachment styles, and it wreaked havoc on him. Instead of allowing the secure attachment style that he was always known to stay strong and firm with, Aaron allowed a wall to build up. He began to become avoidant and dependent upon himself. He was trying so hard to protect himself from getting hurt again. By the next relationship that he became the opposite of what he needed. His attachment style moved from secure to avoidant. Scenario two is between relationships. Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch your own like mental decline and relationship growth thinking about your past partners, isn't it?
No, literally. Well, and I just gotta say real quick, when you first started with that story, you said the character's name was Aaron, and I'm like, that's my brother's name, and that is not what happened for him. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So scenario two is between relationships.
Mhm.
I once worked with a client who we'll call Susan. And she gave me permission to share her story. We had an anxious who had an anxious attachment style. She was in a relationship with someone where she thought she was always on edge. It was not the healthiest relationship to begin with. She consistently found herself consumed with fears about whether he would leave her or whether he was talking to other women, dissecting all his words to create stories of why he may break up with her soon. And she felt extremely insecure, went away. Susan even looked through his phone at some of his text messages and exchanges. No surprise to her, the relationship ended for multiple reasons. After processing the breakup and doing some intense work in therapy, she met someone new. I immediately noticed a shift. The way she interacted and talked about him was completely different from the previous relationship. There wasn't a hint of jealousy or anxiousness. She was okay with the distance and any space he needed for work. They took amazing trips together, and she was able to love and be loved freely.
Mm.
When I brought this to her attention, she acknowledged how true it was. The way she engaged with her new boyfriend was indeed much healthier than in her past relationship. Susan did not exhibit the anxiety and worry she'd once felt. Later, we found out he also had a secure attachment style, which perhaps contributed to the noticeable differences in dynamic. It was a prime example of a truth about the nature of attachment styles. A person's attachment style can change depending on who they are in relationship with, or in some cases, permanently change. Now, this is scenario three through personal growth. I feel like we've both been down this road. I have been aware my whole life that I have an anxious attachment style. This attachment style came from my upbringing. It's a long story. And it affected the way I was showing up in romantic relationships. I tended to need constant validation. I got nervous when my partner needed space. I questioned myself. I did not trust fully, and I had a hard time receiving love easily. All that said, I have been in therapy on and off for over a decade. During this decade, I have done some deep work on myself and how I interact with others. More recently, I was dating someone who clearly had an avoidant attachment style. I couldn't see it at first, but the signs became clear. Instead of me going back into my normal anxious attachment style, I did the opposite. I started to exemplify elements of being securely attached. Seriously, my therapist literally stated, "I am so proud of you. I do not know if you see it, but lately you've been handling your relationship in a secured way." Bingo, it happened again, but this time with me. Why? I had put in the necessary work towards reaching a healthier state, and man, did it feel good. To be honest, it still takes massive work on my end, and I want to go back to my old anxious ways all the time because that is what I knew for so long. Security blanket.
Mhm.
But it feels so
Yeah.
good to be on this side. Here is where I choose to stay. Choosing to change. It is possible that Aaron, Susan, and I all had our attachment style change. I believe so. Changing your attachment style for the better is no easy feat, and it takes acknowledgement work, rewiring of interactions, resetting boundaries, learning healthier ways of relating, and sorting through trauma. Professional help usually does go a long way. Here are some things to remember when working to change your attachment style. Know your attachment style and identify the styles of those around you. Trust me, it'll help you tremendously in understanding the actions of others. You will have more empathy and compassion. Acknowledge the process. A secure attachment style is the goal, but understand it may take time to get there. Give yourself grace if you are anxious, avoidant, or fearful avoidant. There is no time limit. Take your time to get to your desired destination. Don't go on this journey alone. Seek out a therapist or counselor if you have the means, or look to resources like books and podcasts for self education. No matter which attachment style you currently have, just remember we all are humans dealing with the same issues in different forms. You can truly do anything you put your mind to. If developing a healthier attachment style is one of your goals, you can do it. So, and this was shared from Keandra Jackson, LMFT, from mindbodygreen.com. Great article. Well, Melissa, what do you want to share with us about attachment styles after all that whirlwind of a trip?
Well, honestly, if I may, I'd like to do some book recommendations. There were like 4 or 5 books that I've read this year that have completely, um, helped me understand attachment theory and the human condition, helped me have grace for myself, find self-worth, engage in self-care. Um, just absolutely life-changing, revolutionary stuff, if I may.
Go
Um,
for it.
Thank you. So first off, I started with conscious uncoupling. I read that one like 3 weeks, a month after the breakup, and holy cow, it's absolutely incredible. It so not only helped me heal from the current breakup, but it helped me put a bow on every relationship I've ever had. It helped me check in with myself and ask me questions that I didn't know I need asked. And not only that, it offers phenomenal therapeutic tools that can be used elsewhere, not just healing through breakups. I also read the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. It's about attachment theory and adult dating. Oh, you got it? Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And God, it just helped me understand so much of what I had tolerated and been through and done throughout my life. So yeah, absolutely recommend that one. I also recommend The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. That one's really good for just like mindfulness and it helps you understand that you are not your experiences, you are not your emotions, you are the witness. And it helps you step back and learn how to be the witness and teaches tools for mindfulness and like just getting comfortable being inside. Um the very, very big one, The Body Keeps the Score. This one is like kind of my Bible. This is whole okay, it's like attachment theory times 10. It completely explains the way the world is. It's like 40, 50 years worth of studies and data on how our trauma, our neglect, our abuse, how it stays in our bodies and the way it comes out in our health, our habits, and our relationships. And it also offers part 5 is ways to heal from it, which is so, so good. Um, and then the 4 agreements. It's a short read, but it helps to rewire social conditioning and the ways we view ourselves. And so you put all those together and you're gonna be doing good because I'm flying high, you guys. Oh my god. I feel so much I know myself more. I feel confident in that more. I trust myself more because I used to not trust myself at all. And that led me to some very interesting decisions in my life. And so the work isn't that scary. It can be at first, but you don't need to be that afraid of yourself. You're not that bad, I promise.
Have you ever noticed, like, the most incompetent people are the most sure of themselves, and the ones that, like,
Yeah.
generally know what's going on are the ones who are like, "Well, I don't maybe so, I don't know."
Yeah, right. And then the ones that are absolute jackass. Honestly though, I really wonder about them because like, okay, who did they get that behavior from and why are they trying to impress them?
Valid question.
You know? A lot of our world leaders, it's just posturing because they're trying to get mom and dad's approval in the back of their head, you know? It yeah, it's a good time. Sorry, kind of random, but yeah.
No, you're fine. I mean, like we were saying earlier, we're barely scratching the surface of attachment theory.
Yeah. Yeah,
So it is something
absolutely.
that it's worth doing the research on. It's worth, I mean, do some YouTubing, do some reading, whatever fits
Yep,
your lifestyle personally. But
exactly.
it is something beneficial to know more about, whether it's a current situation you're going through or just for future knowledge moving forward in life.
Yeah, it's incredibly helpful information just to have. And like we kind of talked about earlier, I just want to offer a word of caution. Once you learn what your attachment style is, don't cling to the label. Again, like we were saying, you can work towards a secure attachment. It takes showing up for yourself. It takes deciding, I want to learn how to regulate myself. I want to learn how to take care of myself. I'm worth taking care of myself and choosing to believe that even in its tiniest amount, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then suddenly you're good to go. But don't be afraid to start, and when it gets hard, don't be afraid to keep going.
I think worthwhile advice for anybody in any scenario is find your tribe.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, it's gonna change over time. You're gonna go through different phases and different things you need, and you're gonna find people that maybe are lifelong friends or maybe they're gonna be around for a couple years, but finding your support group and the people that you can relate to and you can be yourself with is a huge part of that journey.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Be loud, take up space, and the people that want to be in your space will be there, and if if you find you need to make yourself small for people, then those aren't the people for you, and it's
It's
okay
very
to be
true.
like, "Nah, this ain't it. Love you guys. I don't wanna talk to you though. Bye." You know?
So it's funny, you and I originally met at a seminar years
Yeah.
ago.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what the name of the seminar was. Do you remember?
Landmark.
There we go. It's been bugging me for
Yeah.
like a week. I'm like, "What was it?" It was a trip, it was interesting, and I gained some things from it,
Yeah,
but that is
me
honestly
too.
how you and I met was at Landmark, and we became Facebook friends, and because this was, like, 2019 before the world fell apart.
Oh my god, yeah, right before, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Wow, yeah. So, what, 5 years? Oh,
Yep.
5 years. That's wild.
We've both come one
Yeah.
hell of a long way in 5 years.
Oh my god, we really have. I Man, that's so wild to think about. I was just thinking about the last 3.5 years, but, like, the last 5 years, it's good stuff. I'm happy with where we're at, man. We're both happier. We're
Oh, yeah.
both more aware of ourselves. We're both able to take care of ourselves more, like, that's it's good shit.
You had mentioned, you've done a lot of work on healing the inner child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Anything you wanna any nuggets you wanna share about that?
um okay, so yeah, Bluey was, like, really crucial for that, but that was really recent. Mostly occasionally, I'll just, like, look at, gentle parenting videos and apply it to myself because, like, that shit actually works. But my inner child, yeah. So in learning all the things that I did with attachment theory, it so Brandon was my tower, like we were talking about, and in him was a zoomed in look at my family. My 2 siblings and my mom and my dad showed up loudly in this guy, his good and bad qualities. And so as I was healing from the relationship, the behaviors that he was doing that would say that reminds me of my brother, I was able to step back and then look at a memory between me and my brother and then extend love to that younger version of myself and decide, okay, do I want to act like my brother in this moment? Because there's times where I act like my brother and he's a piece of shit. So there's times where I act like a piece of shit and that's not something I like about myself. So I can choose to do better in that moment. I can acknowledge it and go, okay, I want to do better. Or I can continue the negative cycle. Which one do I want to be? And just send love and compassion to the younger version of me that was hurt and scared in that moment too. Um, but yeah, man, healing my inner child has been so nice because like I view myself as my friend now. Um, I had the realization this year that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and this is the body I was given, and this is the only body that I get for this lifetime. I cannot hate or neglect myself into another body. So I get to take care of this one. And in making that decision, being able to comfort myself became a lot easier. Being able to sit with my shame and my embarrassment became a lot easier. The desire to clean my house, to eat fruit became so much easier. The affirmations, um, it's just so important being able to connect with that younger version of ourselves because something my dad told me years ago was that demons are the costumes that hurt children wear. And so when we're acting like a demon or when we're followed by our demons, it's because there's a part of our younger selves that hasn't been acknowledged yet or that hasn't been attended to yet. And they are just as worthy of love and affection and everything good as the current me right now. Just because I can't go back to the past physically to fix it doesn't mean I can't extend love in this moment right now,
I like
and
that.
it's good shit.
What do you think your inner child would say about adult you today?
She's cool. She's cool. No, I think my younger self would be like, "Wow, you're colorful. I like that." And um you have lots of stories about boys. Tell me that. And tell me what it's like to not crave them. Like I'm incredibly stoked on Scott, and that's it for me. Tell me what that's like, adult me. Um and I sorry, concepts into sentences, very difficult. But no, I think she'd be very proud and very impressed with who I am today. And that feels good to say. I hadn't even thought about that. So thank you for asking that question,
You're
actually.
very welcome. No, it's a good question. It's an amazing answer, and being proud is
Yeah.
amazing. It's a sign of work accomplished.
Thanks. No, it feels good to be able to look back on like who I was, and like I still cringe, but I'm able to do that less these days and just have compassion for myself and
Well, if you don't look back on your past self and have some cringe moments, you have not grown as a person. That is the law and the rule.
why? Why must I live with it though? And like it's funny. So like I was saying, that moment with Calypso on Bluey, you know what's here. You don't need to come back to this place anymore. I apply that to my embarrassing cringe moments. It doesn't work with everything, let me tell you that. So yeah, I am just incredibly stoked of the work. I'm incredibly stoked on the books that I've been able to have access to, and I'm also very, very grateful to my parents because they were human. They are human and did the best that they could, and while being emotionally and physically the ways they were that led to me being an anxious attachment style, I was also incredibly gifted or blessed with parents that my mom was going to workshops like Landmark my entire life. And my dad has been very interested in inner work his entire life as well. Um, and so while I have a lot of negative attributes, because like they weren't perfect, just because they were going through the workshops doesn't mean they were magically like secure, regulated human beings. They just had a little bit of an edge on uh, that's not the way to say it, but like you know what I mean. And I
They
was
had a leg up on it. They were doing
yeah,
things to be better.
exactly. And so while they weren't perfect at it, and I got a lot of that imperfectness, I also got the ability to the desire to better myself because that was modeled for me as well. And that was very, very important for me. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, parents.
Speaking of book recommendations, I have one for you.
Yes. Ooh, I'm excited. I will write it down.
It's Not
Ooh,
Me, It's You by John Kim and Vanessa Bennett. This is the angry therapist and his partner.
interesting. Okay.
This is a book about relationships written by therapists who are a couple, and they get down and dirty about things, and they talk about different important milestones in their relationships and different, things that came about from each perspective.
Hmm.
There's no holds barred in this book. It is
Ooh, just how I like it.
This is the most interesting deep read I have ever done in a relationship book so far.
Color me curious. Yeah, I'm gonna. Okay, it's not me.
And that is the whole reason to which I own this book, because they talk about attachment styles in there
Okay.
and they brush the surface of it and they mentioned this one. And it's like, fucking self-help book making me buy another damn book.
I know, right? No, conscious uncoupling. I don't remember if she talked about attachment theory in the book, but something I was googling after read somehow I found attachment theory after reading conscious uncoupling, and so, yeah, similar story. That's the one that launched me.
Well, we should probably call it a wrap for tonight.
Wow, an hour and 15 minutes. We
Yeah.
got we got a good time.
I sincerely appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience with us tonight, Melissa. It's been fantastic to have you on the show. What do you feel like being on your first podcast?
This was awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me, for wanting to hear my story and my soapboxes, and I have enjoyed myself immensely. I'd like to figure out a way to avoid those pauses where my brain is just buffering. But but ultimately, no, this was a really great experience. Thank you so much for inviting me and for having me on your show. This is phenomenal. Thank you.
You are very welcome. So, Mental Flog publishes new episodes the 13th of every month, as long as we're in a season we're recording. And we do have a text or voicemail line for listeners who have questions. And that phone number is 801-810-7502. You can go ahead and shoot that number in actual text, or you can leave a voicemail. It will go right to voicemail for those who are anxious. Jeff or I are not going to pick up that phone. You're just going to get the voicemail.
It's the way to be.
Well, I think this is a wrap for season 2, episode 2. Love starts at home. Melissa, thank you so much again for being on the show tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Bishop, for having me. This has been a true pleasure.
And for all of our listeners, please do like, follow, and subscribe and share. We're a grassroots podcast. We don't pay for promotion. So if you found us, you either stumbled upon us by dumb luck or somebody might have referred you to the show, and we're happy you're here. Well, Melissa, thank you so much and good night.
Good night. Thank you.